Hey, it's me, your favorite neighborhood lesbian, just dropping by to let you know that today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by you, the patrons on Patreon, and anybody else supporting this podcast. If you're not a patron, you can become one for as little as $3 a month and get early access to episodes and vlogs that I drop. You can also be involved in exclusive live streams for patrons only and many other giveaways that I'm in the process of planning on doing. So if you want to become a patron, click the link in the description below and help support this podcast and the show. And to all the current patrons, thank you so much for the support. I love you all very much. I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, we're recording now. Yeah, we're recording. Okay. Hello. Today I have Jane Epstein on the podcast. And your story is very interesting. I was introduced to you through Suzanne Izaza. And you have a blog, right?
Yes.
It's the complicated, what is it? The
complicated courage.
The complicated courage. And I was stalking you just now before the podcast, kind of going through the website. I'm going to link it below, by the way. But your story, I remember when you first reached out, you had me read your story, and I read it to one of my friends, and she was like, holy shit. By the way, I curse. I hope that doesn't bother you.
I do too. I try not to too much, but it comes out.
Right.
It's my kids.
Same. Well, I don't have kids, but same.
Sometimes it just fits.
Right. Sometimes you just gotta give a holy shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It just happens. But I read your story, and yours it's of, sexual. Would you say sexual assault? Is that what you would categorize it as?
It is sexual abuse from child on child from an older sibling. So it is considered incest, and that incest is a hard word for me to say. It is.
It is. Okay. So me and Suzanne.
No, but I say it. Yeah.
Touched on that it's a
yes
word. Okay. So I guess before we even get into however many questions that are brewing in my brain right now, if you want, just go through the, I guess your starting point of your story.
Wow. As I discussed beforehand, I have so many starting points and so many little rabbit holes on my story. I think I'm not unique in that regard. I think we all have these little veins that we can go down. And I guess the easiest way to describe it is my life started out of order. So I was constantly out of order in my whole life. And now looking back on it, now when I'm 52, I can go back and reflect on it and say, put it back in order and say, okay, now I understand.
Right.
So it all started when I was 6. I was 6 and I had an older sibling, and my older sibling was 12. So 6 years difference.
Okay.
And they became curious and they touched me improperly. I have snippets of memories of things that occurred for 6 years, for on and off for 6 years.
Holy shit. Okay.
And yeah, and his body reacted the way his body was biologically engineered to react, as did mine. So at age 6, age 8, I knew way too much about sex than an 8-year-old should. There was not any intercourse. I do want to make that clear. However, there was improper touching, and my body reacted, and my body liked the touch, and my body liked the attention. So I became, in my mind, a willing participant.
Okay.
Now, my older sibling at the time didn't understand the damage that they were causing, and I didn't either. So, he goes to college, I go on with my life, and I become promiscuous, and I become very dependent on male attention to feel affirmed and to feel pretty and to cover the shame. He comes back from college, he has a child, and he pulls me aside and he says, I'm sorry for what I did.
Wow. Okay.
Big. And at the time I said to him, it's okay. I participated. That was all I could handle. And I put it nice and neatly back into its little box and brushed it aside.
Right.
Meanwhile, I had become a topless dancer, which is pretty standard for sexual abuse victims. I became a stripper, and that's a whole nother story. But I ended up
Part
meeting
two.
someone. Yeah, that's part two, three, four, I'm not sure. And I was on the stage. So I'm trying to give you the snippet and then we can ask questions. But I was on stage and a gentleman did approach me, and I'd been eyeballing him for weeks. And he finally came up and approached me and said something to me. He said, "What are you doing here? You look like the kind of girl I'd take home to meet my mom." And I
Oh,
said, "Please don't leave, because you always tip me and leave. Please don't leave." And he said, "Okay, I'll stay for a few minutes." And I raced to the back and brushed my hair, came back out and sat on the little bar stool. And I just looked at him and I knew I was in love and I knew I was going to marry him.
this is
And
Mark, right? That's the
this
name.
is Mark. Yes, it does get confusing. So that's Mark.
Okay.
I did marry Mark. And it was not a perfect marriage. We had our ups and downs, but he rescued me. I rescued him, and I loved him with every bone of my body. He's the first person that really, truly loved me.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the sexual abuse is still buried in its nice little box.
Oh, so we still haven't visited this.
We have not,
Okay.
no. So then Mark and I get married. We're married for about 6 years. And then he gets diagnosed with esophageal cancer.
My God.
And that was a whole beautiful experience in itself. I was able to be with him and take care of him. I really learned to start trusting God, and I was with him when he died. That's a whole other rabbit hole.
Oh my God.
Uh,
That's a whole nother like level of trauma too, I feel, on top of whatever else.
yeah, I guess based on the other traumas, it is a trauma. And I think the part of the reason it was such a big trauma is because he filled such a huge gap in my life. He was a father figure. He filled all the male roles in my life. And he was a friend, a lover, a husband, a teacher. He taught me how to dress. He taught me how to study. He taught me so many things. And so when he died, I lost a lot. So I was a widow at age 34.
Oh my God.
And then I started dating, and that was a whole new world because I hadn't dated for 12 years. And that's when I call him my current husband. He hates being called the current husband, but he's the
Current.
current husband. I
Right.
plan on keeping him, but he is the current husband.
You should
Uh,
call him your future husband. Maybe he'll like that too. I don't know.
Future husband. Maybe I'll call him future
Current
husband.
and future? I don't know.
Current and future. His name is Steve.
Steve. Okay.
Steve. So Steve meets me, knows I'm a widow, and thinks, okay, everything's all wrapped up in this nice little package. Great, let's get married, let's have kids. Great, we get married, we have kids. I sink into a depression. I did not know it. And he was working a stressful job. I'm depressed. And so we were just at each other. And it was tough. We had 2 children, a year and a week apart. So 2 babies, 2 stressed out parents.
God.
I'm depressed. I'm angry. Then some triggering memories started happening. I didn't know what they were at the time.
They came to the
But
surface kind of.
yeah, certain things just came to the surface. We went out to dinner with friends and someone said something and we were all laughing. And then I quit laughing. I thought, wait, something isn't right here. There's a memory coming to me.
Did that,
So that
has that ever, did that prior to that, did that ever happen before
there
that?
was one situation when I was living with Mark, the first husband, that there was a show on Oprah and she talked about childhood sexual abuse. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I can't believe that happened to someone. And then I thought, wait, that happened to me.
Right.
And I really thought that I had dealt with it. I thought, okay, it was a sibling. It wasn't that big of a deal. I've dealt with it. It's done. The reason I'm angry and depressed is because I lost my first husband and my new marriage is struggling.
Right.
I really put it in a box. And then something happened with my current husband, Steve, in the bedroom. And I just was overflowed with this image and anger. And I woke up the next morning just angry. And that memory has never gone back in the box.
Oh, wow. Okay. So something happened intimately that triggered something from your childhood.
Yes.
And so when you say it never went back in the box, the memory of the intimate moment with your husband or the memory from childhood or both?
Both. I
Okay.
would say both. It opened Pandora's box and it couldn't be closed.
Got it. Okay.
To this point, I had not told Steve about my sexual abuse. I told him, I'm angry, I'm depressed, we need therapy. And I went into therapy. It's your fault, fix him.
Right,
This isn't my issue. And the therapist was like, your anger just doesn't match what's going on here. What else is going on here? And so I made a one-on-one appointment with the therapist, and I told him, I said, well, I was sexually abused. I mean, I don't know. And he said, you didn't tell us that. And I said, well, no, I've dealt with that. And so we had to dive deeper, and I had to dig deeper, and I had to tell my current husband about it. And he was incredibly supportive. And I got on antidepressants, I got therapy, and that's when the process started really happening. But I still wasn't sharing with Steve what my story was. I could write it down, but I couldn't talk about it.
Were you ashamed?
Yeah, it's my brother. I mean, it's a family member. It's really icky. And God keeps telling me, no, this is your thing. And I keep saying, no, God, can't I talk about grief?
Right.
He says, no, abuse, sexual abuse. And I said, okay, fine, sexual abuse. And God said, no, this kind of abuse. So I said, no, I don't want this. But I'm shedding the layers. And as you shed the layers, the shame slowly comes off too. I'm not alone. And my sibling is not alone either. We are not the only people that have gone through this. I know that.
Is he, I mean, not to, is there a level of shame on his end as well?
You know, I haven't point blank asked him that question. I have a very unique situation with him. I've reached out to him. I've been able to forgive him, and he will answer any question I have, because sometimes I'll say, I have this memory. Did this really happen? And he answers me honestly, and he tells me exactly how it started. He was not sexually abused. I asked him that.
Okay.
He was curious. He was a curious 12-year-old. He's not a monster. There probably is some level of shame, but I have not point blank asked him that. We do talk maybe once every 2 months, and we're slowly healing that relationship. Okay. It's still awkward. I think it always will be.
Okay. Oh my God.
Yeah.
There are so many questions. Well, my first question is, okay. So the abuse obviously happened when you were 6. You were very young.
Yes.
And you said it happened for 5-6 years?
Yeah, it went on and off for 5 or 6 years.
Okay. And from about, let's say, 12 to adulthood, what was your relationship with your brother? Was it something that you kind of pushed down and didn't remember? Did you have a relationship with him?
When I was about 12, I think that's when he went away to college.
Got it. Okay.
And that's when I started going to school and chasing boys and getting in trouble for kissing on the playground and needing to be affirmed by boys. So he was away at college. And I think that's what also makes incestual relationships difficult, brother, sister, cousin. I love my brother, and I don't want to harm him or his family. I don't want to harm my parents. I don't want to harm my other siblings who didn't know that this was happening. So we carry it all for the rest of the family as a survivor. We carry it for everyone else.
Wow. And your situation is so unique because you do have some sort of communication. You've forgiven in the sense that, well, I think victims of sexual abuse in some sense can get to a point where they're forgiving their abuser, but not necessarily keeping in touch or keeping a relationship. You have a unique situation because you have dialogue with him. I guess what I want to know is, what is it, because he's your brother? Is that what makes you want to, or do you feel as though he was young too, didn't really know what he was doing, kind of just being a kid?
He was young too. He didn't know what he was doing. He did not know the damage he was causing until later in life. He realized, oh, maybe she wasn't sleeping through that. Maybe I did hurt her. When he apologized to me, I was 21, and I was able to take that apology and put it in my back pocket and carry it with me and know he knows what he did. He's not denying what he did. He's not just going on with his life as though nothing happened, which is very common. A lot of people just deny. It didn't happen. You're a liar. You're a liar. But I had that in my back pocket, and I think that carried me a long way. And he recently said to me, I kind of wish I hadn't apologized to you, because I apologized to you and I thought everything was fine and it was over. And now I come to find out that you were depressed and you were suicidal, and maybe I shouldn't have apologized. And I had to explain to him, no, that was a gift that so many people don't get.
It's the truth. Like, they don't get that actual I'm sorry. They have to learn to forgive, and I guess let go on their own.
Yeah, they don't have any affirmation.
Right.
And even
right.
parents just deny. That didn't happen. He was just being curious. And I'm hoping that my family can be a beacon of hope, that there can be hope and healing if you acknowledge it.
Right. It has to be acknowledged. Absolutely. And well, okay, so here's another question that I have. What is his relationship with the rest of the family versus your, like, are you both close with the family?
Wow. Yeah, just like every other family, we're a little fucked up mess. My father is deceased. My father passed away without knowing about an abortion I had. He passed away without knowing about the sexual abuse. My older brother was the golden child. So there was a period of time when my parents got divorced and my oldest brother didn't speak with my mom. Now I'm thinking we've all kind of come full circle. I had to come to my mom and say, Mom, this happened.
Right.
She believed me. First of all, she believed me, which was huge. She didn't understand it. Yeah. She's like, how did I not know? How did this happen in my home? He was a rule follower, not this kid. How did this happen? She didn't understand it. And then she was on me, you have to forgive, you have to forgive. And I said, I don't have to do anything. I will forgive if and when I'm ready.
Right.
So then I forgave. And then she realized, oh, shoot, now I've got my own journey. I've got to forgive myself. So she went on her own healing journey. So then she had to reach out to him and say, look, I know what happened. So there's that. He's on really good terms with my mom. And then my middle brother had to find out about all this a few years ago. And he's going, what? So but we're coming full circle. We are healing. And then I had to reach out to his daughters and his wife and rebuild those relationships.
Oh my God, what do they say about it? What are their, like, how old are his children?
Okay. I'm a firm believer in God, and I know that God has gotten me here to this point, and I see God working in my family. Before I forgave my brother, he has 4 daughters. Wow. Before I forgave him, I put his whole family, they all had to go away. I had to just step away from all of them. I was able to forgive him, but I still had to keep everybody at arm's length.
At bay.
Yes. And maybe a year or 2 ago, my mom told me, she said, your nieces found your website, just so you know. You should reach out to them.
Shit.
And I thought, it's not my job to reach out to them. He should talk to them.
Right.
I was still angry. And one of my nieces sent me a graduation announcement. And I thought, what do I do with this? And I sent her a gift. And she sent me a card back. I'm going to get emotional. She sent me a card back and she said, I was afraid to send this to you. I didn't want to bother you, but you'll always be family.
Aww.
And the fact that you responded to me means the world to me.
I'm getting emotional.
At that moment, I thought, I need to end this, because now it's going into the next generation.
Right.
It's affecting the next generation, those 4 beautiful girls. So I reached out to them, and I've been building those relationships, and they've been great, but they understand that I have forgiven him and that he has apologized. That was important to them, knowing, well, did he apologize? Did he admit to it? And yes.
And I feel like that's another thing. I feel like it's not like he is like a child predator present day, or obviously, as far as anybody knows, his daughters are fine. You know what I mean?
Correct.
He's not doing anything to
He's
children.
not.
He was a kid himself, and it's, I guess, I mean, it's abuse nonetheless, and it affects you. But as kids, you're exploring, and you're an idiot. Like, kids are friggin' stupid sometimes. Not to, and I'm not trying to dumb it down because it is serious stuff, but it, I mean, it's not like as an adult that's what he grew into, I guess. And I guess
He
that
did not. He is not a predator. He is not a monster. And you've said what parents go through. Parents are faced with the dilemma: is this normal childhood curiosity, or is this a problem? And that's what I'd like to get to the bottom of. I want parents to talk to their kids before it's curiosity, before you're questioning whether it's a problem.
right.
There's cousins that this happens with cousins too. So yeah, you kind of nailed that. That people can dumb it down, and I even dumbed it down. I was like, it was just innocent touching. It was just my brother, but deep down,
It
it
affects you.
changed the trajectory of my life. Now I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for all my experiences. If you tell me to go pick up somebody's basket of shit, if I was going to pick up my basket of shit or someone else's, I'd still choose my basket.
Right, right.
So
That, I mean, that in and of itself is an amazing thing. I feel the same way, like with my basket of shit. I never heard of it referred to that, by the way, like that way. I'm going to steal that. That's being
go
stolen.
ahead.
um but I mean, it makes you who you are, and it's made you who you are. It's given you faith, it seems. I've seen on the website you have a whole section dedicated to faith and stuff like that. um how did that happen, by the way? Like, how did this, so you had this anger, you became a topless dancer, you were uh seeking validation from men and stuff like that, you were angry. How did you find, like, God, spirituality?
Right. Well, for me, I was raised in a Christian home, so I had that base. And then I took a huge detour. I mean, there was abortion, there was drugs, there was topless dancing. That's a pretty big detour off the Christian path.
Yeah,
And
I'd say.
then I met Mark, and religion wasn't at the top of my list, nor his. We were just living our lives. And then he got sick, and I started praying. And once I started praying, I didn't beg God to save Mark's life. I just had this sense that it was going to be okay. Mark may not live, but it was going to be okay. So I started depending on God through Mark's illness, and I saw God through Mark's illness. And I saw the goodness of people, because I become very jaded and I thought people just suck. But and they can, but you
Yeah.
go through something like that and you really see wonderful qualities. And I started seeing the sun and the moon and snow and green grass. And when somebody cuts you off in traffic, I still get annoyed, but it was a little less annoyed.
You're
Learn
right.
not to sweat the small stuff. So God was there. Then I started dating, and I actually married Steve, who is not religious at all. He's not atheist. He just is kind of flat.
Right.
And I thought, that's fine. I can handle this. So we get married and we have kids with the agreement that I would take the kids to church. Through my marriage to Steve, I hit a deep, deep depression. And I went through my old habit of trying to sabotage relationships. And I tried to sabotage my marriage, and I tried to push him away. I was going to divorce him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were in marriage counseling, and I was just done, because anything to sabotage this marriage, anything to not deal with my own issues. I didn't know it at the time. Looking back, I can see it that way. Now, Steve's not perfect, just so you know. He's not perfect. Takes two. I was praying to God, and I was desperate. I said, I can't do this. I want a divorce. And I heard God say no. I heard him say no. And I said, fine. I surrender. I give you this marriage. It is yours. I can't do it. So at that point, I started praying every single morning for 10 or 15 minutes. To this day, I get up every morning and I spend 10 or 15 minutes to God, and I lean on Him and I rely on Him and surrender everything to Him on a daily basis.
I feel like that is like your okay, because I'm more in the Steve camp where I'm not religious at all, but I am spiritual. Um
Yes, I think people can have a different relationship.
right, right. And the meditate like that's like your meditation where you kind of center and you find God, you find that within you and it helps you get through the day. That makes a lot of sense. And I feel and now listening to your story, it feels as though like I don't believe in coincidences, you know. I feel as though do you feel as though Mark was kind of put in your path to bring you to that? Because that's what it sounds like to
Yes,
me.
yes, and Steve was brought to me to help me heal.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
Steve,
okay.
yeah,
You obviously you're still married.
yes.
Um, what was that like? I guess well, the self-sabotage. I've seen that in so many women that I've dated. Pretty much every woman that I've dated, because every single woman that I've dated has had some sort of abuse trauma, whether it was abuse from the father or sexual abuse or all of the above. First, before I ask how it went saving your marriage, why the hell does that happen?
I don't know. I mean, because looking back, I can see it. And I, even with Mark, towards before he was diagnosed, I was starting to push him away.
Right.
For me, I can say that I think I didn't want to be known. I didn't want anyone to know what had gone on as a child. I didn't want to be discovered. It sounds so cliche, and you read it all the time. You don't want to be known. I did not want to be known. I was hiding, and it
I
was easier to push them away than to truly, truly be known.
like to when you say be known, you mean like um the every facet of you, like even the facet of you that was abused. That
Yes.
okay, that makes sense. I've never heard that before. I've never
Oh,
heard that reasoning. I mean, it makes sense because when you have to show somebody else that, you have to face that yourself. And probably
yeah. I wasn't. Yeah, I can't share it with someone else if I haven't looked at it.
right, right. And it's
Maybe
easier.
maybe we'll figure all this out here right now.
Right.
I'll figure it out.
Well, I mean, I guess going through my past relationships with women that I know have been abused, it was the same thing, pushing and I'm always that partner that wants to that like not to compare myself to Jesus. I'm going to sound like a narcissist, but like I want to save, I want to be there and be the safe place. And a lot of women look at that, the good people, and they're like, what the fuck do you want from me? Like, was there skepticism too with like the good men in your life?
Yeah. I Mark had to fight hard to get me. I had been burned so many times, and Mark was the first person I let all my walls down, and he loved me, but then he died.
Right, right.
So then I'm like, you abandoned me. But I became more open with Steve, but I still had that wall built up. Now I'm gonna open up a whole new chapter here.
Open it, girl. Open it.
So when I hit my low point, I I had a moment on the bottom of our stairs here at the home, and I said, I have got to unturn everything inside of me. I've got to figure out what is wrong with me. At that point, I'd lowered the antidepressants. I was doing well, but then I discovered something in my marriage, and I hit bottom. What I
Mhm.
discovered doesn't sound like a big deal to a lot of people. I discovered that my husband was watching pornography,
Okay.
but I can't be intimate. So I thought, well, you're watching pornography. I can't be intimate. I'm a failure as a mom. I'm a failure as a wife. And I hit bottom. And I approached him about the pornography and he stopped. He quit watching it. Steve's my biggest cheerleader. He
Sound
really is.
honestly, he
He's
sounds like it.
he's a saint. Poor guy. But he loves me no matter what, and he supports all of my endeavors. So at that point, I decided I need to write. I just have this drive. I need to write my story down. I need to figure it out. And it's then that I could put it down on paper and I could rearrange it. And I saw the puzzle pieces and I understood why my life was out of order. Oh, I knew about sex too young. I was a widow at 34, depression. It's too, then I could rearrange it.
Right.
And it was at that point I started writing. And someone expressed interest in my story. And I was starting to write it for Steve because I could still write it but not speak it. But someone expressed interest in my story. And so Steve became my business partner. I needed him on the phone. I needed him to hire a lawyer. And so I'm spilling my story out on the phone, and Steve's in the room with me. And he's hearing some of this stuff for the first time. He's in the corner typing away, type, 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 like,
Was that,
not hearing things for the first time.
how did that go?
And that's how my walls came down. That's how I showed my true story, my whole self to Steve. And we would get off the phone and he would say, I didn't know that.
Oh,
I didn't know that. And I said, I didn't tell you anything.
right, right,
So that's how I was forced to become truly known with Steve. I was forced into it because I had an opportunity. It didn't pan out, which is fine because it really brought Steve and I closer. And I say it healed my marriage.
right.
So I was
I was
forced to
gonna
be
say
known.
that. I was gonna say, is that what did it? You know, the opening up, letting the floodgates kind of just open.
Yes. And there's still things he doesn't know. As I write, I pass him a chapter and he's editing my chapters. And he'll say, I'll have to give him a warning. I'll say, there's some new news in here. And it's not normal for a husband to be reading about his wife's sexual history. He
Right,
doesn't want to know.
right. Who wants to know that?
He's like, I don't want to know what number I am. I really don't want to know. Can I skip this chapter? But he's in it. He's able to be objective and
That's amazing. Well, first of all, the fact that you guys can be business partners and he can be there for you on the business end of it. It's kind of like he had to, like the business aspect brought you together romantically and emotionally. That's what it sounds like. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
And I'm not healed. I still intimacy uh, creates a lot of anxiety. But I look back how far we've come and I think, okay, well maybe there's hope. I'm still healing. There's no finish line.
Right. Now, okay, going back to what you said before. You were saying um you couldn't be intimate. Um and so because of that he was engaging in pornography
Yeah.
and that
And that I don't have at the time I took it personally. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So sorry.
no, 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 no. G- Go off.
Sorry, Tori.
No, no, no. Do not apologize at all. That's what I was gonna say.
Um,
Like that's what it was. Um,
yes, because for me, I saw pornography as those are my people. A lot of those women have been sexually abused or sex trafficked, and so it was personal to me. But I understood. I thought I can't be intimate with you. You're human. So I was really in a tough place.
right.
And I wasn't sure. I couldn't demand that he quit watching pornography, but he offered up. He said, I'll stop. And he did. I don't think all pornography is bad, but when it comes to sex trafficking and if, is somebody willingly doing it or not willingly doing it. But for a while there, I just went on this tangent about anti-pornography and I realized, no, that's not my thing. My thing is I need to stay in my lane,
I
which is
mean,
child on child sexual abuse.
and okay, so I've okay, so when you say you have trouble with intimacy, is it the vulnerability part? Because I'm telling you, talking to Suzanne, talking to you, and I've kind of thought this. like going through my life and my sexual partners and stuff like that, like thinking like, did something happen to me as a kid? Because I feel the same way at times with sexual partners where it's hard to kind of be vulnerable. That's kind of what you're saying, right? Like it's hard to be vulnerable in the bedroom with somebody.
Yes. I'll try and describe it this way.
Okay.
Sex for me was a transaction. It was, if you want to sleep with me, then I must be pretty. If you want to sleep with me, you must love me.
Right.
And I wouldn't make eye contact. And my Steve, the current husband, he always thought that was strange. He would say, you were always like a male in the bedroom, just kind of make it happen and be done with it. No cuddling, no eye contact.
Like no making love.
So you're right.
Okay.
So to this day, am I capable of making love? I don't know, because once the memories came back, I struggle with touch. The best way I can describe it, when I'm touched, I'll jump, and I feel it go through my skin, go through my body. So
Touched
I remain hopeful. I remain
at,
hopeful that I can get through that. But
when you say touched, do you mean like even hugged?
yes,
Even
I'm
hugged.
getting better about hugs. I can hug the kids because they're not threatening.
Got it. Okay.
And
Like,
I'm getting better. I'm getting better. As my husband and I get closer, I hugs and kisses, holding hands. That's where we're at.
wow. So it affects your affection in a relationship. Oh my God. Okay, so maybe I wasn't touched as a child because I'm just very affectionate. I'm just a very affectionate human. I'm like hugging strangers, you know. I get like stopped. Such a side note, but I get stopped. You know, people recognize me from TikTok, and I'm like,
Yeah.
can I hug you? But for you, you're saying like that wouldn't be you can't hug just
I
anyone.
want to hug, and I thought I was a good hugger, but two people called me out on it. They said, "Man, you need to learn how to hug." And I was like, "But I'm hugging." And someone said, "But it's like hugging a stick figure." I thought, "But I want to hug. I
I
want to.
want to be good at this.
I do. I do." And for you, honestly, you are one of those people. You just walk down the street. You're a people collector.
I do. I
People
love.
just people just want to get. You are warm, and
Thank you.
you draw people in.
Thank
You
you.
do. I would let you hug me. I might feel like a stick figure,
Yeah.
but I'd let you hug me.
I would give you the best hug, seriously. You wouldn't even have to hug back. You could just literally like put your arms to the side and I'll do all the work. That's literally like I'd hug a tree, you know? Like
Yeah.
I'm
But
that you go.
I think you are like a lot. I think we all question when we can't be vulnerable. Did something happen to me as a kid? I mean, I think that's it.
Right.
We're all so connected on so many levels.
I think there are like I remember weird things happening as a kid, you know, like um with kids that I would play house with and stuff like that, like weird
Yes.
things. Kids do. I just remember doing
Yes.
weird shit, you know? That could
Kids are curious. They
right,
are. It's
right.
just when it goes over the line, and it usually goes over the line when a child is. You always have to be careful if a child's 3 years older than the younger child.
Got it.
There's a big age difference, but there is normal curiosity,
Right.
and those things happened with me as well. And those were your body knows your body you have those instincts for a reason.
Did you now we're going really back, but you said in the beginning of this that you were um consensual to some degree because you said your body had the bio like at that age
Yes.
you're not putting those lines to you know together, so your body's
No.
having a natural, it's aroused in some way.
Yes.
um did you feel, looking back, because it was consensual, that it wasn't considered abuse?
Yes.
Okay, so you just kind of put it off. That was another thing that kind of made you put it off.
Yeah.
But was it Was it that, okay, you put it off and kind of wrote it off as, well, I partook, but you were angry as well simultaneously? Oh,
Something inside me, the shame inside of me knew something wasn't right.
right.
He never threatened me. He never hurt me. He never harmed me. There was even a point where I started to say something to my mom. She doesn't recall this conversation. The only person who recalls it is my sibling. I was starting to say something about something going on, and my mom said, "Oh, kids will be curious."
Right.
So I was oblivious, and it came to a point where I would seek him out for the attention. My body wanted more touch. I would seek him out, and I would partake in hiding the fact. There was a time I recall we were in the basement and someone came home and we ran. So I became very much a part of it. So that was a huge hurdle in my healing process, admitting that my body liked the touch, admitting that I feel like I even have still trouble having saying it today, admitting that I sought him out, admitting that I liked the attention. Those were huge hurdles, and learning how to say incest and molestation out loud. Those
And
were the biggest hurdles in my healing.
it seems as though, and this is me just kind of, I'm like, you tell me if I'm right or not, but it seems as though the word is hard. Incest is hard for you to say.
It is hard. I think part of the reason it's hard for me to say is I don't want people to assume that there was actual intercourse. There
Right.
can be an incest. I feel very fortunate that that did not happen. So for me, I think that that's hard to say. And my brother, that's just nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about this kind of sexual abuse because it is so grotesque.
Right. And I think a lot of the times society, again, before speaking to Suzanne, when I thought of incest, I thought two consenting adults who are like brother and sister, cousins who are have an attraction toward one another and want to engage in sexual activity. Not ever did I think of, you know, child on child. Like I didn't put sexual abuse to it, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes sense.
And like I've even seen debates on YouTube of people saying that like incest is morally okay because a lot of people have this misconception that it's two consenting adults, or you know what I mean? But
Right.
it's not that at all. It's a lot of the times, I mean, you could probably tell me, Suzanne could probably tell me, a lot of the times I would assume it's, even when you are consenting, like in your case, you were consenting, it was uh not that you were being manipulated. What am I trying to say? That you kind of made yourself believe that you enjoyed it, I guess, if that makes sense. Or maybe you really did enjoy it because you were so young
I
that,
was young.
right.
Yeah, I did enjoy the touch, and I had an absent father. I say absent. He did not know what to do with a girl, and I was the third born. He didn't want a third child. He was not absent. He gave me everything he was capable of. So the male attention, and at 6 years old, my body was turned on. I was hypersexualized. So I didn't really understand. You can't consent at age 6.
Right. Right, because what the hell? Like, I'm trying to think of what I was doing at age 6. Like, I was eating mud pies. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what the hell is going on at age. I'm thinking of like, I have nieces that are 5, so around this, like, it just my 5-year-old nieces wouldn't know what the hell to do. And even I've noticed, I have a nephew who's just born. He's a quarantine baby, so he's like 7 months old.
Oh, congratulations
Thank you.
to your nephew.
Right. And my two nieces, they're 5, they're twins. And I even notice when I'm um changing my nephew, one of my nieces is very curious and she'll come and like look at his stuff. And I have to tell her, like, give him privacy. You have to, yeah, you
But
have to,
that's good though. I mean, she has a brother to, well, I say that, but that's how my brother discovered me. So That's I think that's where this is so tricky for parents.
It is.
That's why we need to talk to our kids and let them know, because my sibling is a rule follower. Had someone sat down and said, you don't touch another person from the bathing suit, you don't do that, that
Right.
wouldn't have happened. This sibling is a rule follower. They're a good kid. It wouldn't have happened. And if you'd sat me down and said, if somebody touches you here, tell me, would I have told? I honestly don't know. I don't know. I hope I would have, but I don't know. But if after the fact, after it already happened, and I already felt the shame, and I already felt part of it, I
Mm.
wouldn't have. I didn't want to get anybody in trouble.
Well, that, and I think you just now touched on a really good point. I feel like a lot of the times the conversation um is to the potential victim in the situation, where you sit down a child and say nobody should be touching you in this area, you know,
Right.
but we never think to have the conversation with the potential um I don't what would you, I don't want to say predator, I don't want to say a
Right.
user, but the potential not even aggressor,
Potential abuser. Yeah. I mean,
instigator.
instigator. We'll go with instigator.
Right, that's right. Because I don't want to put the negative connotation to it.
Right.
In this case, your brother's not, like you said, he's not a monster. So but we never think to have the conversation with a potential instigator, where you can sit down a child and say, listen, if you're curious, it's not okay to just arbitrarily, randomly touch somebody, anybody, in their no, in their that zone,
Right.
um without consent, if, like, you know what I mean, at all. I mean, well, first of all, for you, was it, did it start non-consensually?
Absolutely. I don't know how. I can tell you how it started. I point blank asked him, how did this start? Were you sexually abused? And he said no. He was a curious 12-year-old boy. What happened was we were watching TV and my mom said, okay, kids, it's time to get ready for bed. I'm 6. I hop out of bed and I get dressed right there in front of him. And he instantly thought, I need more information, and
Right.
decided at that point he was going to get me alone. And he got me alone. He'd babysit me, and he got me alone. And then his body reacted the way it's supposed to, and his body wanted more, and my body wanted more. Um, it was back in a day and age where hopefully now parents are talking to their children more. Back in that day and age, people didn't talk about sex
Right.
or masturbation or anything. So all hands off. To
Right.
answer your
Right.
question, I think I lost. I think I went off the rails.
No, no, this you're explaining it perfectly. um I mean, I just feel like there's so much that, I mean, going back in the day, nobody talked about it, but even now, there's so much that, just from talking to you and talking to Suzanne, just two people, I've learned like, even in today's day, we don't talk enough about it. We don't know enough about this sort of stuff.
We don't.
And I, like, just now talking to you, had the revelation of, like, wait, we got to talk to the potential uh instigators too. I'm going to call them instigators now. That's
Okay.
just what I'm going to call them.
It works.
Right. Because we don't realize that, as kids, when it's child on child, and this is common, child on child's very
Very
common.
common.
You
Very common.
Is it more, I don't know the statistics, is it more common than, like, adult on child?
It is. They say sexual abuse, child on child, is 35%. Child on child is more prevalent than a father-daughter incestual relationship, according to the statistics that we know about.
Wow. So a lot of the times it's like an older cousin, older sibling, or
Yes.
whatever it is.
They say
Wow.
children between the ages of 8 to 14 are the most dangerous.
Dangerous.
Dangerous as far as acting out on this. And then you think about, the availability of pornography. So they're seeing things happening on the screen, and you're 8, and if you're watching that on the screen, you're not able to discern that, okay, that is a human being on the screen. You don't reenact that. So I am concerned about that regard with pornography and children. They say with pornography that the rates are going up.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And I mean, now it's so accessible too.
Yeah, it's so easy to get to.
It's really, all you got to know is a couple of websites, and there's no paywall. There's no, you don't need a credit card.
Right? Or a couple terms, search a
Right.
couple terms. Who knows what's going to
Right.
come up?
That's it. Oh my God. So
Yeah.
pornography being accessible. I mean, here's the thing. I remember when I was a kid, my father, I'm going to put his shit out there, but he was very into pornography, and he would have the illegal boxes. And I remember a few times my older sister would walk in the room, in the living room, and my father would be sleeping on the couch, left the pornography up, and
Yeah.
like creeped, and it freaked her the fuck out, to say the least. And I remember my cousins coming over, and us, channel 37 was like the porn channel, and like we discovered it, and we locked ourselves in my room and like watched porn at
Yeah.
a young age. So I remember all of that stuff and like the effect that it does have on you. And so you're
Yeah.
saying that now, because it's even more accessible to kids, that it's actually um it's it's bringing on more sexual abuse, or I guess exploration.
Yes. Yes. There's a website, the Mama Bear Effect. I can get you the link. She's got all kinds of information and helpful materials, and I've got a whole list of children's books to read to your kids. But
Oh,
yeah, I mean, I pornography used to be hard to get to. I mean, I had a friend, we would sneak into her parents' house, we'd thumb through their magazines, you know.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's all in the normal range.
That's crazy. And now also you have the non-consensual porn, revenge porn, and all
Right.
that stuff. I mean, that's a whole nother a whole other story topic in and of itself.
Right.
But I mean,
That's your next podcast territory.
right, revenge porn podcast. We could do a whole like a whole episode about that. Um, that's nuts. I didn't know that. Is it like, when the kids are doing this with each other, would it be considered abuse? Still, I mean, it's still abuse, right?
They say it's abuse, particularly when there's a 3-year age gap, when there's a child who's much older than the younger child.
Okay.
They say that's abuse.
Okay. And it's like even the older kid doesn't realize, I'm sure, what they're doing.
They don't understand the damage that they're causing.
Are you still like in therapy to this day?
I am not.
You aren't.
I am not. I'm pretty sure I put my therapist 3 children through college, between marriage counseling and my counseling. Honestly, what worked for me, I was in therapy and I started feeling like you're taking my time.
Right.
What really hit me was I was in therapy and my marriage issues. I said, look, let's just dump this. Let's just work on this together because this isn't helping. And I started seeing a female therapist on my own. And at one point, I told her I was starting to write and I was going to do a blog and I was going to go public. And she said to me, after talking to another therapist, we're very concerned about you going public with your story, because what if one of your children's friends' moms comes across it and then your children get teased?
What?
I listened to my instincts and I said, no, I need to write. I just need to write it down. So I started writing and I quit drinking and I'm off antidepressants. And
Wow.
that's what's working for me. And I will say, if you're a sexual abuse survivor and you haven't started writing, if you want to start writing, just set a timer for 3 minutes and just start small, because it is very triggering. It takes you back. But yeah, that's what's working for me.
Did writing, okay, because I I am currently in therapy to this day. Um And for me, like it has helped for sure.
Yes.
And my therapist is always telling me, like, always write, journal, write your feelings down. Even if you don't know what the fuck you're feeling or
Yes.
whatever, do it.
Right.
Did you find that, like, your process was the same way, where you're like, what the fuck am I doing this for? And then all of a
Yes.
sudden it would just flood out.
Yes. And I have, there's books, I think Anne Lamott and, or even Brene Brown talks about the shitty first draft. You just, if I just write, sometimes I just don't let the pen stop. Even if I write blah, 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 I don't know what the hell to write. What am I going to do? And then sometimes it starts flowing. Writing is incredibly therapeutic.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. I really do. And I'm not saying that you need to go back and read it in a couple of years. Some people do. I haven't had time to do that. Um, it's just what is working for me.
Right. And I feel like that's another thing too that people need to understand, that one person's story isn't yours, and
Correct.
that's like why I want to have so many different stories on the podcast, especially pertaining to sexual abuse and stuff like that, because just even going from Suzanne's story to your story,
Very different.
very different processes, very different um instigators, if we could, uh I'm just gonna stay using that word. And I feel like a lot of people need to realize that what works for one may not work for another.
Absolutely. I am not he I'm here to share my story in hopes that it resonates with someone. You don't have to go through sexual abuse to resonate with a part of my story. I think that we can all be connected. And if it resonates with someone on some level, great. But I am not a therapist. I am not here to tell you how to heal. I'm still healing. And I'm also not here to tell you you have to forgive to heal. I think forgiveness, grief for one is like a fingerprint. It's very individual. And I think forgiveness is very individual. I think it's like an individual fingerprint. What can be forgiveness for one person might be something different for someone else. Like I had a friend who wrote a memoir and I read the end of it. She talked about how she wasn't able to forgive. And I reread the paragraph and I said, I think you did forgive. Just maybe not by the quote unquote definition of forgiveness.
That
We're all in a journey of our own.
right. I mean, your story, I feel like even I can connect to, because, well, I mean, because I know the weird shit that happened to me when I was a kid, and things that would happen. But also, I've dealt with um abuse from partners and stuff like that. And I know how that journey can kind of bring you to spirituality and faith and stuff like that. And like you said, just because this specific thing hasn't happened to somebody doesn't mean that they can't get something out of it. I feel like your story is going to, people are going to watch this and be like, wow, like I don't know, I just have a feeling, very strong feeling.
Well, I do hope. I feel very fortunate to have so many experiences. And even I've listened to your podcast and I listened to talked about Mama Jill Wallace and Ryan, and just talking about the body issues.
Yes.
I didn't like my body, and I wasn't living an authentic life. I wasn't true to who I am. It's very different. I'm not coming out, but I had to kind of come out. It's very different, very different. But I had to. I didn't love my body, and I had to reconnect my body. And people thought I was one way. They would say, "Oh, you're always so happy. You're this or you're that." And I'm in the classroom helping the kids with their art project, thinking, "You have no idea. I was just screaming in the car. I want to die. I want to die. I'm a liar. I'm a walking liar."
Right.
So I think we can all relate on some level. I hope.
Absolutely we can. And
Yeah.
I think that's also huge too, is um what you see isn't always what's going on the inside. I mean, I'm a fucking walking liar too, I'm out here smiling. I mean, I'm happy overall. My disposition is very happy, but there are days where I'm crying on the inside, and sometimes crying, like literally crying, and then turning on a camera and like smiling, for the camera. So it's like those are the people you gotta, I always say that, those are the people you gotta like look out for the most, the ones that are always smiling. Because
We're
if,
always busy. I was always busy, always moving, always exercising. And people would say, "You're so healthy." I'm like, "No, I'm trying to outrun my past."
right,
It doesn't work, by the way.
no, it doesn't. You have to, and I think that's, if there's anything that I want people to get to take away from every single friggin' episode, it's that we have to face our shit. We can't run away. Have to stop running away from our traumas and how it's shaped us and stuff like that. We have to face it, because in facing it, it's like that dragon. We have to kind of slay it and then put your foot on it, and you conquered it, move on to the next quest in life. That's why
Yeah.
you're here. That's why I'm here, you know. But
There's a great quote. I actually wrote it down. It's by Dinty W. Moore. He's a writer, and it says, "More people have been harmed by secrets and concealment than by candor and revelation."
I
Because a
love
lot of
that.
people don't want me coming out with my story. They worry about my family, and I have to. More people are being hurt by the secrecies.
Right. Absolutely. It is essentially, you said before, I'm not coming out of the closet, but I feel like it is in a way coming out of the closet, coming out of your own. We all have closets that we gotta
It's
freaking.
different though, because I think society handles closets differently. Different closets, different ways.
Honestly, I feel like nowadays it's more acceptable to be gay than it is to have ever been sexually abused or come out and speak out against your abuser or and speak your story. I feel like
Uh-huh.
victims are more looked at in a negative way than in gay people now.
Well, that's progress. Then that's great.
I mean, for
For,
gay at least.
yeah,
But
yeah.
now we gotta make sure that we're all on the same playing field and make sure that victims can come out and tell their story and feel comfortable doing that. And I think what you're doing is amazing with the blog and just telling your story. It's really an incredible thing.
I didn't want to. I just feel honestly that God is saying, "You have this is your thing. You got to talk." And I told my parents, my dad is deceased. I told my mom, I said, "If I don't come forward and talk about it, then I'm disobeying God."
There you go.
That's how I
And
feel.
that's your thing. You feel it within, you feel that. And that's something um you can't escape it, whether you want it or not.
I
It's just
tried.
right. Right.
I
And
tried.
and God will always, when you're trying to escape your shit, God says, "Okay, hold my beer. I'm going to give you a situation you can't escape now."
Yeah.
That's what happens. That's when you run away from your shit. God says, the universe, whatever you believe in, says,
Right.
"Okay, well, I'm going to give you a situation that you can't run away from." And here we are.
Yeah. And I
What?
feel like he's given me the tools and the support to get through it. And
Yeah.
Steve is a big cheerleader of mine.
And I think you have to understand that you're giving other people with your platform and your story tools that they can use. Um, I hope you understand that. I hope you know
I
that.
hope so. I feel like God gave me this story for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it. I feel that way with my narcissistic abuse that I went through, with my ex and stuff like that. That I feel like I went through that, as tough as it was, to be able to have the insights and the emotional kind of intelligence to help somebody else who's going through a similar situation.
You have a very high emotional intelligence. You really
Thank you.
do.
Thank you.
You do, Tori. Very, very high EQ.
Thank you. Thank you. Now in closing, because I know I've taken up a lot of your time, what is the final thing that you would tell somebody who's gone, like, what's one thing you want somebody out there to know, um that you haven't said?
I First of all, if you've gone through sexual abuse or incest, you are not alone. Um, if someone comes to you about sexual abuse, please believe them. That can go so far in the healing process. And if you have gone through sexual abuse, I pray that you can find the courage to come forward, because it's really shedding the layers. You are carrying a shame that is not yours to carry. Just take it off.
Right.
Share your story somewhere, somehow. There are lots of platforms to share your story, and I can get, like Voice for Innocent. They take stories, and you'll just get more and more used to it. The more you say it, the more you tell it, it loses its power. And let's bring this out of the darkness and into the light.
Yes. Oh my God, you're amazing. I freaking love you. Gotta say,
I love you. I love you. I think you are so funny. I think you are such a warm human being, and I
thank
can't
you.
wait to see where you go with this podcast.
Thank you so much.
You are
And
such a good people person.
oh, thank you. I honestly, I love your energy. I really do. Even like via the text, I'm like, oh, I love her. So seriously, thank
I
you
had
for
to try and
everything.
be cool. I'm 52. You're 30 and hip. I thought, okay, I can't be too prim and proper. I'm such an
Hip. God,
old person
I don't
to
feel
change
hip.
my
I'm telling you.
spiel.
After we get off of this, I'm gonna tell you how hip I am. I'm literally probably gonna put on Harry Potter and like geek out on my bed, So it's all a facade, I promise. But thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. And thank you for everything you do. And
Thank you, Tori.
I'd love to have you on anytime. You text me
Thank
anytime
you.
and
Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. You're welcome. I will talk to you and I'll let you know when this drops, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye. Have a
Okay.
good day.
Bye. You too.